Have you ever laid down at the end of the day, your mind spinning with hundreds of thoughts, regret, anger, or a hollow sense of emptiness? We live in a world where the daylight is chaos, but the night brings truth to the surface. And that's the golden hour, not for scrolling, not for escaping, but for returning inward, for touching the quiet freedom within. The Stoics believed you cannot master life without mastering your mind, starting with the moments before sleep. Tonight, we'll explore 7 nightly Stoic practices, not as rigid rituals, but as habits. Solid, clear, and resilient. Habits that free you from the grip of negative emotion. 1. Dialogue with the self, reviewing the day that passed. When night falls and the outside world sinks into silence, that is, when the inner voices speak most clearly. And in those quiet hours, free from work, buzzing phones, and the clamor of daily life, we are given a rare opportunity to do what no one else can do for us, to hold a dialogue with ourselves. This is not a religious ritual, nor some form of self-hypnosis. It is simply a return, a turning inward to face oneself directly, without embellishment, without excuses, without avoidance. This practice is one of the cornerstones of Stoicism, and a foundation upon which a deeper life can be built. Many believe that self-reflection is reserved for philosophers, monks, or those with idle time. But the truth is, if we never stop to examine how we're living, we risk repeating the same small errors each day until they become a personal tragedy. That's why Stoic sages like Seneca often spent the last moments of the day asking themselves, what did I do well today? Where did I fall short? What could I have done better? Not to self-criticize, but to learn, because there is no real progress without honesty. Think of each day as a chapter in the book of your life. If you never reread what you've written, how can you know where the story is going? A small act like sitting down at the end of the day with a notebook and jotting down a few thoughts can become a powerful tool for ordering your life, revealing what truly matters and what is quietly draining your energy. Writing is a way to see your thoughts, and once seen, they can be clarified, refined, and transformed. When I began asking myself questions each night, I realized how often I said yes just to avoid conflict, even when it pulled me away from my values. I also noticed how small daily choices, like pausing to listen to a loved one or choosing not to react in anger, had the power to change the tone of the next day entirely. This practice doesn't have to be complicated. All it takes is a quiet space, a blank page, and the courage to be truthful. Start with a few simple questions. What am I proud of today? Did I live in alignment with my values? When did emotion override reason? Is there someone I hurt or forgot to thank? And finally, one vital question: what can I do better tomorrow? Repeat this process each night, and something remarkable begins to unfold. You start to adjust your behavior effortlessly, without force. You become more attuned to yourself, and you learn to forgive not only others but also yourself. What's beautiful is that no one sees you doing this. There are no cheers, no judgments, but in that quiet solitude, you're laying the groundwork for self-mastery. Each time you face yourself, you take one more step away from the crowd, away from automatic living, from impulsiveness, from being governed by fleeting emotions. This is the Stoic way, not to be a slave to a life unexamined. If your life feels directionless, if you often wonder why the same frustrations keep repeating, or if you simply want to live with more meaning, this is the starting point. Sit down, look inward, and speak honestly with yourself. Don't yet expect a dramatic change overnight, but if you do this for a week, you'll find yourself responding differently to familiar situations. Do it for a month, and your patience will deepen. Do it for a year, and you may no longer recognize the person you used to be. We often think we need more knowledge, more skills, or better opportunities to change our lives. But perhaps what we need most is the moment of silence required to face the truth. And that moment only comes when you give yourself time at the end of the day. No phones, no noise, no one else. Just you and the most honest version of you having a conversation. That is where all personal evolution begins. 2. A meditation on death. Memento Mori. We often live as if death will never touch us. We make plans for next week, next month, years ahead, as if time were an infinite resource. But the truth is, none of us knows how many days we have left. And that uncertainty, if we dare to face it, can become the greatest force driving us toward a life of depth, awareness, and wholeness. That is the spirit of Memento Mori, a core Stoic principle that simply means, remember, you will die. At first it may sound grim, morbid even, but Memento Mori is not meant to terrify or depress us. It exists to awaken us from the fog of aimless living. The Stoics believed, only when we fully grasp the limits of life do we begin to live with true intention. When we assume we have endless time, we postpone the things that matter. We delay apologies, delay right action, delay our dreams. But if each night before sleep we pause to ask, if tomorrow were my last, did I truly live today? We'd begin to see what is trivial and what is essential. Ironically, the more we avoid thinking about death, the more quietly anxious we become. We fear the passing of time, fear aging, fear losing those we love. But when we meet death face to face, without denial, without panic, that fear starts to fade. In its place, a strange calm arises, because we understand death is not our enemy. It is simply part of the cycle, like dusk at the end of a bright day. And once we accept that death is inevitable, every moment we are alive becomes infinitely more precious. I once tried practicing Memento Mori by imagining, if tonight were my final night, what would I feel? And the first feeling wasn't fear, it was regret. Regret for holding grudges over petty things. Regret for not honoring my emotions. Regret for postponing what matters, thinking I had more time. In those quiet reckonings, I began to see we don't need a diagnosis or a loss to begin living meaningfully. We can begin now by recognizing the truth of our impermanence. Contemplating death doesn't require rituals or ceremonies. It can be as simple as switching off the lights, placing your hand over your heart, listening to its rhythm, and asking, am I truly living? Was today worth repeating? You don't need perfect answers. You just need the courage to listen. And with each practice, you'll find yourself worrying less about small things, caring less about what others think, daring more to express love, to do what's right, to live like each moment carries weight. This isn't abstract philosophy. It's a discipline, a spiritual resilience. It's how Stoics find freedom in a world full of chaos. One of the most beautiful things about Memento Mori is that it doesn't make us abandon life. It makes us love it more, not with attachment or desperation, but with clarity and gratitude. When you realize that the morning you woke to today was never guaranteed, you stop wasting it chasing perfection or expecting others to fulfill you. You begin to live more simply, more sincerely, more deeply, and you learn how to say goodbye without heaviness, because anything lived fully is never truly lost. Perhaps that's why Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, once wrote, "You may leave life at any moment. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." It's not about rushing to live. It's about living with sufficiency. It's not about indulgence, but about asking each day, what truly matters if tomorrow doesn't come? When we live with that question in our hearts, every choice becomes clearer. Regret finds less space because awareness was already present at the start. Memento Mori is not something you merely understand with the mind. It's something you feel with the heart. Try it just once. Imagine that time is short, and then look at how you live today. It will change how you see everything. There will be less anger, less waiting for the right time, less living as if life is endless. In its place, presence, clarity, a steadiness of soul amid all uncertainty. That is the most enduring gift Stoic philosophy has to offer us. 3. Nourishing the mind. Reading Stoic philosophy. In a world flooded with information, it's easy for the mind to be dragged through meaningless noise. Each day, we absorb hundreds of headlines, clips, and fleeting opinions, rarely pausing to ask whether these inputs are nourishing us or slowly poisoning our mental space. And by nightfall, when our bodies are weary and our minds in disarray, we often fall deeper into the habit of mindless scrolling, seeking distraction, unaware that this very moment is when the mind is most malleable. The Stoics understood this well. They didn't let their minds fall into the hands of others. They deliberately chose what entered their inner space. And that's why reading Stoic philosophy before bed holds such profound value. Unlike typical books or entertainment, Stoic writings are not meant merely to be read. They are meant to be lived. Every sentence from Marcus Aurelius, every letter from Seneca, every teaching from Epictetus isn't abstract theory. It is wisdom refined through lives that grappled with emotion, power, suffering, and death. They didn't write to appear wise. They wrote to survive rightly. That's why when we hold a Stoic text, we don't feel lectured. We feel accompanied, even understood. I remember the first time I opened Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. Here was an emperor, ruler of the Roman Empire. Yet in his private reflections, he appeared just like us, tired, conflicted, striving to stay virtuous in a chaotic world. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. So why let meaningless things invade it?" That question stunned me because, truthfully, I allowed countless trivialities into my mind daily, and then wondered why I felt anxious, irritable, or unfocused. But in those evening hours, reading his words, I found myself slowing down, breathing deeper, and desiring a better way of being. The habit of reading Stoic thought before bed doesn't require much time. Just a few pages, even a single passage, is enough to plant a seed of insight into a weary mind. What matters isn't how much you read, but the mindset you bring to it. When holding a book, treat it as a conversation, not with a stranger, but with the wisest part of yourself. Some nights, I'd read only one sentence, close the book, shut my eyes, and let it echo in my mind like a quiet compass. And strangely, the next morning I'd wake up with a shifted mindset, as if that one timely line had realigned an entire week of tangled thoughts. Some people believe philosophy is abstract, distant, hard to grasp, but Stoicism isn't that. It's as close as your breath, as practical as the advice from an old friend who's seen it all. Take, for example, Epictetus's words, "It's not what happens that disturbs us, but how we perceive it." A simple line, yet enough to interrupt a surge of anger, invite reflection, and offer space for a different response. This isn't theoretical philosophy for enduring, for growing, for living. Reading Stoic philosophy at night is like anchoring your day with purpose. When the noise has faded, your mind is more receptive than ever. What you read in that quiet enters not only your conscious thoughts, but your subconscious mind, gently shaping your worldview. Like an athlete mentally rehearsing a race before the start, the Stoic prepares for tomorrow by absorbing timeless truths before sleep. You might begin with classics like Meditations, Letters from a Stoic, or the Enchiridion, but there's no need to read them cover to cover. Open to any passage, as if drawing a card, and let the universe guide you to what you need to hear. One night, you may find a sentence that breaks your habit of procrastination. Another night, a line that soothes your anger. What matters is allowing yourself to truly listen, with no defenses, as if a quiet inner teacher were whispering beside you. And over time, you'll notice your mind becoming sturdier, not because you know more, but because you understand better. You understand yourself, your emotions, what's within your control and what is not. Every page you read becomes a brick in the temple of self-mastery. And when you can govern your own mind, nothing outside can knock you down for long. So each night, give yourself this simple gift. Turn off your phone a little earlier. Open a Stoic book and let the words touch the deepest part of you. This is more than reading. It's how you nourish the mind of a wise warrior. 4. Mental detox. Detaching from the external. We grow up in a world that whispers, sometimes screams, that our worth depends on things outside ourselves. The numbers in our bank accounts, the followers on our profiles, the awards on our walls, or the admiring glances of others. Slowly, we get swept into an invisible game, doing more to be seen, being better to avoid being left behind, living out a script we didn't write. And the sad truth is, even when we achieve some of those things, we still feel unsettled. Because real peace doesn't come from having, it comes from letting go. That's why the Stoics insisted, if you want freedom, you must first learn to detach from the external. Detachment doesn't mean giving away all your possessions, disappearing from society, or rejecting the material world. No, the Stoics weren't antisocial or advocates of extreme asceticism. They simply reminded us we cannot stake our happiness on what we don't control. If your joy depends on praise, then a single insult can ruin your day. If your self-worth hinges on validation, you'll be instinced to attention. And if you believe happiness comes only when everything is perfect, you'll live in lack, even when you have plenty. I used to care a lot about how others saw me. Every photo I posted had to be edited. Every word I said was calculated to please. But the more I tried to shape myself to match others' expectations, the more I lost touch with myself. Eventually, I realized I didn't even know what truly mattered to me anymore, because I had spent too long trying to please. It was in that moment, as I discovered Stoicism, that I understood I needed a kind of mental detox. Not a cleanse for the body, but a liberation of the mind from its dependence on the outside world. One of the simplest, yet most powerful tools for this practice is negative visualization. Before bed, imagine losing something you deeply value. Your current job, your favorite car, a relationship you hold dear. Not to dwell in worry, but to become familiar with loss, so that you cherish more while it's here and remain steady if one day it leaves. Stoics didn't deny the pain of loss. They just refused to collapse under the weight of what was never in their control to begin with. Detachment also requires consistent self-observation. Ask yourself each night, what affected my emotions today? Did someone irritate me? Did a social media post make me compare? Did a piece of news spark anxiety? Each time you do this, you begin to see the hooks the external world uses to tug at your inner state. And only by seeing them can you begin to unhook yourself. This doesn't happen overnight, but daily awareness builds an inner defense, quiet, strong, and resilient. The Stoics knew that emotion is natural, but not something that should govern our lives. They allowed themselves to feel, but didn't let feelings drive them blindly. When praised, they smiled, but didn't inflate. When criticized, they listened, but didn't crumble. They didn't run from the world. but stood firmly within it. Because they had learned this, value isn't found in others' gaze, but in how we respond to it. Evening is the perfect time to practice this. The noise of the day fades, and space opens to listen inward. Place your hand on your chest and ask, what made me feel not enough today? Who or what is controlling my mood? And if by morning that thing were gone, would I still be myself? These questions gently pull you out of the hidden trap of dependence and guide you toward a more self-directed life. Detachment is not indifference. It's the highest form of love for inner freedom. When you are no longer dragged by expectations, comparisons, or applause, you feel lighter, clearer, more aligned. You don't need to impress anyone. You only need to live in such a way that when alone, you still feel whole. That is the ultimate aim of the Stoic, and that is the invitation you can begin tonight, with a few quiet moments, a few honest questions, and the deep resolve that you are not here to be ruled by the world outside, but to master the one within. 5. Reaffirming your life's mission. Focus on your purpose. One of the central principles of Stoicism is that every human being has a unique role in the universe, a mission that cannot be replaced, a duty no one else can carry for them, and living in accordance with that mission, not to please others, not to collect wealth or cities, is the only path to true peace and genuine happiness. When someone loses their sense of purpose, they become like a sailboat, drifting without a compass, easily carried by whatever wind blows. But when someone lives with purpose, every action, every choice, every thought is lit by that internal direction, grounding them amid life's inevitable storms. The Stoics didn't believe in a life driven by impulse or fleeting inspiration. They believed that, as rational beings, we have a responsibility to choose our path consciously and to ask, what was I born to do? What matters most to me? What values am I living by? These aren't lofty philosophical questions. They are practical guides for daily living. When someone wakes up without knowing why they should get out of bed, they fall easily into stagnation, distraction, and a sense of aimlessness. But if they are clear about what they serve, whether it's a noble ideal or a simple act of service, they face the day with different energy, aware, focused, and intentional. In Stoic thought, purpose doesn't have to be grand or glamorous. It doesn't have to be about changing the world, becoming famous, or building an empire. Sometimes it's simply the commitment to live with integrity, to raise a child with care, to perform one's daily work with honesty and attention, to be fully present with loved ones. When this purpose is clearly defined, it immunizes us from shallow temptations and shields us from being pulled toward short-term goals society tries to impose. It becomes an anchor in the storm, a lamp in the fog of doubt, condition, or fatigue. Reaffirming our purpose should be a daily practice, especially in the evening, when the day winds down and a new one is on the horizon. It's the perfect time to pause and ask, did I live aligned with my mission today? Was there something I did that strayed from my core values? What do I need to adjust tomorrow to live closer to my purpose? These questions, asked consistently, create subtle but powerful shifts in how we live. They don't turn us into someone else. They help us become more truly who we were born to be. The Stoic concept of prosot, meaning attention and mindfulness, is vital to this process. As attention is not just focus on a task, it is full presence in every act, every word, every decision, grounded in an awareness of our life's purpose. The Stoic doesn't operate on autopilot. They don't let emotions or circumstances dictate their actions. They maintain a deliberate pause between impulse and response, enough space to choose wisely. They don't chase every opportunity or give in to every attractive offer. They choose only what aligns with their chosen path. Once a Stoic has clarified their purpose, they don't abandon it when things get hard. They know challenges are part of the path and that the right road is rarely the easiest one. But with clarity of mission, they are not so easily defeated by temporary setbacks. They practice perseverance, not out of duty, but because they see meaning in what they do. Each failure is no longer frightening. It's just another step on the journey. Each moment of confusion no longer overwhelms because they have a destination to return to. The deepest goal they have chosen for themselves. Practicing this kind of reaffirmation doesn't just bring direction. It helps us release what's unnecessary. When we know what truly matters, we're not easily scattered by trivial things. We compare less, envy less, feel less deprived. Because our energy is concentrated on values, on ideals, on what gives our life meaning. This is what real minimalism means, not removing material things, but removing what doesn't serve our purpose. In Stoic philosophy, a right life doesn't begin by changing the world. It begins by knowing what you're living for. Without direction, achievement is empty, but with a clear purpose, even the smallest acts carry strength and dignity. And each night, before sleep, if you give yourself a few minutes to return to your mission, even through one simple question, then your tomorrow will begin with clarity, and your entire life will gradually be shaped in the most meaningful way possible. 6. Self-discipline. Choosing what's right over what's easy. Personal discipline is not self-oppression. It is the highest form of freedom. In Stoic philosophy, discipline is the foundation for building a life of virtue, resilience, and purpose. Without discipline, values, ideals, or life goals remain vague ideas because there is no bridge connecting thought to action. Discipline is that bridge. It enables us to stay on the chosen path, even when emotions, circumstances, or temptations try to pull us in the opposite direction. Cultivating discipline isn't optional. It's a necessary practice for anyone serious about living the Stoic way. Stoics don't wait for inspiration to do what's right. They don't act based on fleeting emotions or passing passions. They act because reason tells them it's the right thing to do, and they do it repeatedly, even when no one is watching and no reward is offered. Strength isn't built in grand moments, but through daily commitment to the seemingly mundane. Waking up on time, eating mindfully, finishing a task, speaking truthfully, keeping promises, and refusing to indulge every whim. These simple acts, done consistently, form the pillars of a well-ordered and purposeful life. In Stoic thinking, choosing what's right often comes with difficulty. The easy path gives momentary comfort, but often brings long-term regret. The right path may demand effort, patience, and mastery over instinct, but it lays the groundwork for self-respect and personal growth. Stoics don't avoid hardship. They view it as training. Each challenge is a workout for the spirit, a test of self-command. The question they ask isn't, "Is this easy?" but "Is this right?" And that single question, asked daily, becomes the compass that guides them through life's turbulence. Self-discipline also improves emotional regulation. A disciplined person doesn't let fleeting emotions dictate their behavior. They may feel anger, but don't lash out. Feel tired, but don't quit. Feel tempted, but remain grounded. This stability isn't innate. It's forged through repeated practice, where each small act is a conscious choice. Over time, these right choices accumulate, forming a core of inner strength resilient against both external pressure and internal chaos. One of the clearest expressions of Stoic discipline is the ability to delay gratification rather than chase immediate rewards. The disciplined person accepts discomfort, boredom, even short-term pain to achieve something more meaningful in the long run. They understand that ease rarely leads to value. They live by principle, even when it brings misunderstanding or criticism, because their goal is not to please the world. It is to become a person who lives in line with their values. Discipline is how they ensure those values don't remain abstract, but become real through daily action. Stoics also understand that discipline is not something you master once. It's a lifelong process. There are days they fail, grow lazy, or let themselves slip, but they don't use failure as an excuse to give up. They meet their mistakes with honesty, learn from them, and return to the path the very next day. They know that consistency doesn't mean never falling. It means always rising again. That perseverance is the essence of real discipline. Training discipline doesn't require grand gestures. It can begin with one small choice. At the end of the day, instead of scrolling mindlessly, read a few pages. Instead of eating impulsively, choose a balanced meal. Instead of making hollow promises, learn to honor your word. These small acts, repeated steadily, become a source of inner strength that nothing outside can shake. And once you master yourself, no person and no situation can master you. In the light of Stoic thought, discipline is not confinement. It is the path to supreme freedom. Freedom from emotional impulses, from social manipulation, and from your own weakness. The disciplined don't need lofty declarations or external motivation. They become their own source of energy, building themselves daily through small but meaningful actions. And in the end, it is the quiet consistency in ordinary things that creates the extraordinary in how they live. 7. Letting go and restoring. Rest like a warrior. In the journey of self-mastery and inner discipline, rest is not the opposite of a discipline. It is an essential part of long-term endurance. The Stoics did not see rest as weakness or indulgence, but as an intentional act, one of recovery and renewal. They understood that a wise warrior not only knows when to fight, but also when to lay down their arms, return to stillness, and restore both body and mind for the battles ahead. That is why proper rest is viewed as a vital nightly practice for those pursuing an awake, self-directed, and sustainable life. When night falls, the body and mind must be released from the tensions accumulated throughout the day. If we don't deliberately create space to breathe, to let go, and to recover, our efforts during the day risk becoming burdens that drain our inner strength. A mind that doesn't rest well becomes scattered, vulnerable to negative emotions, and loses the ability to act with clarity. A body that lacks recovery will fold under even the smallest pressure. In Stoic philosophy, rest is not a pause. It is part of a life strategy, a necessary step back in order to move forward with strength. The ideal state of rest in Stoicism is ataraxia, tranquility of the mind, undisturbed by anxiety, regret, or expectation. It is not numbness or indifference, but a deep calm born from knowing what is within your control and what is not. Before sleep, a Stoic does not carry unresolved matters into the night, nor allow unprocessed emotions to become lingering nightmares. Instead, they consciously lay down their burdens, thought by thought, emotion by emotion, through simple yet powerful rituals like deep breathing, physical relaxation, silent meditation, or quiet prayer. Preparing for sleep is seen as a ritual of restoration, not only to recharge the body, but to reorganize the mind into greater harmony. In this state, the imperfections of the day lose their weight, mistakes are viewed with compassion, and pressure is put into perspective. Not too heavy to bear, not too trivial to ignore. The Stoics understood that each day is a cycle of initiation, action, and renewal. And without this final phase, the entire process lacks the foundation needed to begin again. Evening is also the most appropriate time to unplug from mental distractions, social media, unfinished work, or unhealthy entertainment. The Stoic turns inward, reclaims silence, and listens to what stirs within, ending the day in wholeness. They don't allow stress or unresolved emotions to dominate their rest. Instead, they treat the moment of sleep as sacred, a soft landing where the will relaxes and the spirit is refreshed. Resting well is also a form of discipline. Not everyone has the strength to turn off another episode, power down the device, or silence the restless mind and go to bed on time. But this simple choice, repeated night after night, is one of the most profound acts of self-respect. Stoics don't seek freedom in doing whatever they want whenever they please. They find freedom in doing what is right at the time it is needed, including the act of stopping when it's time to rest. A quality night's sleep is not only medicine for the body, it's where the lessons of the day are transformed into wisdom, where thoughts settle into a refined value system, and emotions are quietly processed, so the next morning begins with a clear and lighter mind. That's why the Stoics didn't treat sleep as an afterthought, but as a key part of self-nourishment. They prepared for rest as a warrior prepares for a new journey, with calm, with discipline, and with purpose. When you learn to let go before sleep, you're not merely ending the day. You are actively resetting your internal system. You don't fall into sleep like someone collapsing from exhaustion. You invite it like a friend, a healer, a vital element of your inner life. And when you wake, you are not starting from zero. You continue forward from where you left off, with a clear mind, a steady heart, and a renewed strength, ready to meet whatever comes next. When I began integrating these 7 practices into my daily life, I realized that real strength doesn't lie in knowledge, but in small actions repeated with consistency. At first, I couldn't maintain them all at once, but simply choosing one to start with, like writing a line of reflection each night, already shifted the way I saw myself. Sitting still before bed, instead of rushing toward distraction, opened up a space where I was no longer a victim of emotion, but an alert observer. There were nights when a single sentence from meditations was enough to recalibrate my thoughts back to my core values. I also struggled with letting go, the urge to control everything, but practicing negative visualization helped me embrace loss as a natural part of life. I no longer woke up anxious, but began each day with a mindset quietly prepared the night before. These changes didn't happen overnight, but they accumulated like water carving through stone. Slowly, yet surely. If there is one thing I've learned from Stoicism, it's this: when we live with intention, no moment is wasted, and every evening can become a quiet ritual of becoming a better version of ourselves. Each night is a chance to reset, to cleanse the mind, and to prepare for a new day with clarity, awareness, and inner strength. These 7 Stoic practices aren't rigid rules. They are tools for building resilience, mastering emotions, and living with purpose in a chaotic world. If any of this resonates with you, begin tonight. Choose one small action and do it with the seriousness of someone whose life depends on it. To keep receiving valuable content on Stoicism, self-mastery, and personal growth, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next video. Remember, each evening you choose mindful living is a quiet but powerful commitment that you are becoming someone your future self will be proud of. I'll see you in the next video.